Hello, Ian. I'm delighted. I think this is about the fifth chat. It's maybe a year since the last one. But me and Steve are delighted to be chatting with you again, sir.
Well, so am I, because I died twice in the meantime.
Wow, we'll find out about that in a minute, no doubt. But yeah, I think it has been just over a year, hasn't it? But I think this is only my second chat. Yeah.
Who's
so
counting?
right. So how's life in the Big Apple, Ian, anyway?
Well, at the moment it's pretty grey and miserable. It's very British weather. It's neither one thing nor the other. You know, it's grey, cloudy, damp. And it's not literally cold on the thermometer, but it feels freezing. You know, it's British.
Well, we're quite sunny today, but we are a bit chilly, to say the least. The wind chills really bringing the temperature down here. But anyway, enough of the weather. As you've mentioned, you've had a couple of major health scares in the past year, so fill us in. Tell us about them.
I developed septicemia. I was teaching, and I felt very weak, and I sort of reached for the edge of the desk, and I staggered, and I carried on for a day or two, and then it got really bad, and I called my cardiologist because I was blaming the pills, which are pretty toxic. The cure is worse than the disease. So they're things they give you for, you know, heart problems. And it was then one morning I couldn't breathe, so we rushed off to the hospital on the doctor's orders, and they diagnosed septicemia. I had blood poisoning in the heart, endocarditis.
That's ill.
And what makes it worse, they came rushing in, you know, that worried look about doctors who sort of think they found a three-headed monster. And she came rushing in and said, "Have you had any dental treatment lately?" Why not? It's dental bacteria in your heart.
What?
I thought the first time of, you know, dental decay in your heart, and it's streptococcus. I've seen it since then. Apparently it's getting quite common, but it gets into the bloodstream, causes septicemia, blood poisoning, as we used to call it. And then it goes to the heart and it causes mayhem there, which almost killed me. So I was on, you know, I was on the pump with antibiotics for well, it was 3 weeks in hospital and then 4 weeks at home, intravenous.
Yeah.
Which isn't the end of the story. It turns out this, when they did the operation, a lot of this is doctors. A few years ago, when they replaced my aorta and the valve, they put plastic in.
Yeah.
So I've got more plastic in my chest than North Pacific Gyre. I'm glad they don't do biodegradable plastics, or they didn't at the time. So it turns out that this is this provides the perfect surface for biofilms. These bacteria form a shield wall. They spread out and they link to each other and they form one organism that resists detection and also resists, antibiotics. So it's a known factor of implants. It's worth remembering, because the implants have a smooth surface. They can form a flat shield, you know, and anyway, so that apparently the consequence of that is that I should take the antibiotics probably for the rest of my life.
That's
because
scary.
with the aorta and the heart valve, they can't be sure they get rid of it. They check it and they say, well, there's no sign, but it's a bit like ISIS in the bunker. It can come out anytime because they resist detection. So anyway, that's bad enough, 3 months or so. And then I was wrestling with my doctor because saying, look, these drugs you're giving me are killing me, literally. You know, I can't move, I can't breathe. So I called one night and I said, look, I'm stopping taking this one drug, Myadorone. And I liked it because one British doctor, when I researched it, he said, this should only be prescribed by veterinarians because their customers can't complain.
Oh dear.
Is
that to do with the cost of it, Ian? The cost of the medicine?
No,
and the medication?
no. I mean, this is in America, it's oxen free. Once you've reached retirement age, you get medical treatment beyond that you could ever live. If you can make it that far, they pay for you.
Wow.
The difficulty surviving. Anyway, when they checked it out, it turns out that the antibiotics, they used a saline drip, and they used a saline drip to clean out the tubes. This causes major fluid imbalance. So I was rushed in the following morning with congestive heart failure, which is the closest I've ever been while I was awake and conscious to dying. It was fairly spooky.
Yeah.
So, I went in and I knew it was serious because as soon as we got to the hospital, Linda, my beloved, there was a wheelchair. Didn't even bother getting an ambulance. It would have taken too long. Caught a yellow cab, caught an Uber.
Oh.
Took me right to it. There's a wheelchair there waiting for such contingencies. Piled into it. She pushed us in. They never asked for insurance.
Yeah.
That's how ill I
Scary.
looked.
Wow.
Pushed me right through. Just move.
Yeah.
And had me on the bed in no time at all.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a spooky feeling because that's very serious in an American hospital.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, without doubt, yeah.
If they don't get your insurance details, it means you're either dead or close.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, they're normally very quick to do that. They won't treat you until they've got all your details.
No. Yes, okay, you can't breathe. Now, what's your insurance number?
Yeah.
What's your carrier? What's your plan? So anyway, that was another one, and frankly, I haven't properly recovered since then because I can't walk properly, and I got a weird feeling, which you would know from writing. I can do TV performances. I'm on radio and television a lot.
Yeah.
But trying to write, it's a different universe.
Is it all over the place, your thoughts, the characters?
Yeah, can't concentrate on a sentence. You sort of diversions, attention deficit disorder. So, an article that I could dash off in half an hour a few years ago, I've been working on it for a week now.
Wow.
And it's really frustrating because with Gaza and the rest of the stuff, there's so much to write about.
Yeah.
There's so much spleen I want to vent.
Ian, that's the teaching. Is that stopped now as well? Is that?
Well,
gone?
I had to stop because I collapsed in the middle of the class.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a bummer.
Terrified the students, I bet.
Yeah, and then I had to wrestle with them, and then I've been in dispute with the unions. Been in dispute on my behalf because they say I broke the contract by dropping dead halfway through the term.
That is a complete joke.
Yeah,
not off.
So I'm not eligible for they're downsizing. So the number of courses I've taught means that I'm automatically up for another course to be taught. And they say, no, you broke the contract.
Oh, dear.
So the union is now persuaded they might have difficulty with that one.
Yeah.
And the secret I discovered was mention Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
This one they take seriously. They run for the hills right away.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've got that sorted, and they want me that they say that I'm up for next for the next semester. But frankly, I'm not quite sure I'm up to it.
Yeah.
I can teach on Zoom, which I did do.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the students, I had a student yesterday calling and asking where I was and how I was, and we need you. So I got some of them excited anyway.
That's good. Was this all worse than the aneurysm that you had a couple of years previously? Or
Well, I was
on the same level.
In some ways, the aneurysm was worse because that could have been instantly fatal. Look, the worst bit is reading these afterwards, and you discover that you had only a 2% chance of survival. Oof. I mean, I am now way over the odds. If I were betting, I wouldn't bet on me. This is 3 or 4 incidents I've had now where each time it said I got a 2% sense of survival. Yeah. And I've survived.
You buying lottery tickets, Ian?
The only lottery ticket I bought was when a tree fell on the house while I was in the bed. And the local hardware store guy gave me $2. He said, go and get a lottery ticket immediately and we'll go halve on the winnings. That was pretty spooky as well, because the tree came through the bedroom wall.
Yeah. Wow.
While I was in bed.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Lucky man. Yeah.
The death has no fears for me. I mean, we're close acquaintance.
What's that film series? Final Destination. You ever seen any of them? There's about 7 of them. The first one's quite decent, but the 7th, obviously the plot was a little tiny bit thin. But it's a series of where people just escape death. Or it's like sort of the television series Casualty. You think this is how they're going to die. You see things building up, but then they just escape it. But at the last second, it catches them.
Now, I've seen. It doesn't worry me that much. I mean, the death as an abstraction doesn't worry me. I've thought about it a lot lately, because I've always been interested in funerals ever since I did the do-it-yourself one for me dad.
What?
Oh my word!
What? What's that?
It was in The Guardian. Well, he was a curmudgeonly old atheist, and when he was dying with lung cancer, we hadn't spoken for years, but we reconciled on the deathbed, and he trusted me. In fact, he trusted me. He probably hated me. He made me the executive of his will. And so he put it down that he firmly made me promise that we wouldn't waste any money on undertakers. And he said, I've come to an arrangement with the hospital and the medical school in Liverpool. He said, you've got to, they've said they'll accept my body under any circumstances. So don't worry about the funerals and don't give any money to the undertakers. So when he eventually died, this was in Wiston Hospital. It was where he popped his clogs. And I mentioned this to the staff there, and they said, look, we've got bad news. We called up the medical hospital and they won't take him. And I said, why not? He said, well, you'll have to sort this out yourself. He said, they only take healthy bodies.
What?
What?
So I called him up and said, I've got a sort of degree in English and there's some mixture here. What's a healthy body? Because in my experience, most cadavers are distinctly unhealthy. Like it's in dead, not functioning. And it turns out they only want complete bodies. They don't want anyone who's died of cancer or anything like that, which I thought was a bit weird because as a medical student, I don't want to know what a cancer looked like from the inside.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, anyway, they only take healthy bodies. So I argued with them for a while, and then I thought, well, how can we square this circle? The main point is he doesn't want the undertaker to get any money, which maybe, he was frightened by an undertaker in the morning sometime or whatever. So I called around, and I was doing stuff for the Guardian New Business page in those days. And I remembered that one of the new businesses I'd gone to see was a guy making coffins in Skem. And, so I'd gone to interview him. It was we had a great time. I mean, at one point we were interviewing and we're each lying in the coffin, next door coffins. Job satisfaction is important. So he also had a sort of what almost counts as an export business, mostly for London. It was Caribbean coffins. Yeah. Ones with the most florid satin linings, purples and lilacs and pinks and lime green and stuff like that. I wouldn't be seen dead in them myself, but that's a story. But anyway, so I called him and said, hey, John, how are you fixed for a box for me dad? And he said, well, he's a bit shorter than me, but, he's, well, that's okay. The hospital had quoted me £490. The guy who does our pauper funerals said they'll provide you a coffin for $490. £490. I said, £490 for firewood?
Yeah, that's true.
You must be mad. This is a cremation. Yeah. Well, you've got to have a coffin. It's the law. I said, but you don't have to have a £490 coffin. Yeah. So anyway, John quoted me 49.50. He said,
Bit of a difference.
just come with a van and pick it up. Make sure you have a screwdriver and make sure you have wedges underneath. That's the key bit. So you can get your fingers under to lift it up. When you put it on the ground, you don't want to be poking around, breaking your fingernails, trying to lift a box up.
Yeah.
So this is a good Shaggy Dog story, the more I think about it. So I got my, various people from the pub and my brothers-in-law, and we all went to the hospital. We arranged the crematorium, and they were a bit leery, but they had no option. We're going to turn up. We're going to pay them from a crematorium. We had to get an extra certificate from the doctor. They used to call it oven money.
What? Oven money? What, for
Yeah, that's
cremation?
what the doctors called it. It was the junior, to prove that you hadn't just poisoned the deceased and were trying to get rid of the evidence. You had to have a second doctor sign the death certificate.
Yeah.
So this was something the junior doctors did to boost their income, and it was called oven money.
Okay.
I love this stuff. So
Yeah.
Oven money. We turned up. We paid the oven money. We got the extra certificates, and they said, "Well, just go to the morgue." And this was the hottest day of the year. This is before global warming was a big issue.
Yeah.
Never been so hot at the time. And knocked on the door and went in, and the morgue in Wiston was in a little outhouse. All of the fridge doors around, and they were all open.
Wow.
And the morgue attendant was there, flat cap, bib and brace overalls, with his feet up in one of them, and his sandwiches and his milk in one of, breakfasts. And he said, "Hey, you come for Williams?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I've heard about this. It's interesting, Lancashire accent." And he said, "Some people don't like this job, but on a day like this, it's a cracker."
Was cooling himself down with the fridges because the hot day.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
The whole wafting to and fro. So we got it in. We hoisted him up and took him on the way. There were a few logs, of course, because my friend Richie, the postman, he spooked my brother-in-law by knocking on the coffin lid as we were driving. And Arthur was a bit spooked by this, so we stopped for a pint on the way. Raised a drink in the car park, and then went to the crematorium, and they were waiting for us. We've heard about this. All the undertakers are talking about you. So that was it, because he didn't want a service of any kind. We had a sort of a memorial with drinks, and I actually made a profit on the funeral because I wrote about it for the Guardian and a few other. It was the Independent. Anyway, the money I got for the article more than covered the whole cost of the funeral and the drinks.
Your dad would have been proud of you, Ian.
That's exactly
incredible.
what one of his friends said. His friends called up and said, "Your dad would have been proud of you."
So the last time we chatted, Ian, you were talking about looking back in your life, early days in Liverpool, as you just mentioned the tale about that. I think you were looking at your family history, and I think you were thinking of putting words on paper, some kind of memoir. Did you ever carry on with that?
I was trying to, but all of these interruptions. No, I've been collecting this stuff, and the tale of, it's a very Liverpudlian tale, the tale of the family history. It wasn't so much me who was looking, it was my nephew. And it turns out he discovered he's only my step nephew.
Yeah.
Because we discovered that his grandfather was not my father, it was somebody else. Because he called up and said, "Hey, and we've got some difficulties here. It doesn't match. And there's some O'Gallagher's in the family tree." I said, "I don't think so, Rod. You've..." And then I thought back. I thought, there's a story here. I said, "It's too late now because all of the actors are deceased." But there's a fascinating story, and my father, and modern generation probably doesn't, the Catholic Protestant divide. Our family was Welsh Methodist atheist.
Yeah.
And he lived in the south. They lived in the south of Liverpool, South End, and he married a Catholic in Scotland Road.
Oof, that was the main divide, wasn't it? Catholics one side, Protestants the other.
And my brother, my brother was always sort of derided my tolerance for this bigotry. He said, because I went to a Protestant school, I used to get bricks thrown at me every night when I came home. So there was rampant bigotry on both sides. The Orange Lodge was every bit as bad as the Green Lodge and vice versa. So anyway, it turned out that we worked out that let's say she had an affair with a neighbor, a married neighbor.
Yeah.
This is my step. This is not my direct parent. It was because she died, but after giving my father 4 children.
Yeah.
But one of them wasn't his,
which
he'd hinted at several times in his cups.
Yeah.
So we got it. So I mean, that's the shaggy dog story about this is that Rod had done the research based upon the actual, certificates.
Yeah.
And our family was, my great-grandfather was Swedish, lived in Bootle, dock gatekeeper at Canada Dock, by the way. And they traced his ancestry back to the north of Sweden, Finland. And he even found out that we had Lap ancestors, Sami, the indigenous. One of my ancestors was the apostle to the Laps, founded his own branch of the Lutheran Church, and preached teetotalism.
Yeah.
It shows that the genes don't always run true.
True, yeah.
But he was so he'd done all this research on the Swedish side, and it goes back, and I've actually sort of refreshed a bit of it recently because I took a DNA test as well. But with this discovery, it gets even more complicated because we got into a roots thing. When my father died, it was when my mother died. We had a sort of family wake. And that was when the old fella revealed something that was a shock to my older brother, because we're all sitting around in Hartington Road at my sister's drinking, and, as one does after a funeral.
Yeah.
And I come in and the old fella said, "I've been reading what you're writing in the New Statesman and you're wrong."
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is fairly typical, but it is the first words he said to me for 15 years. So it's fairly memorable for that.
Yeah.
I said, "And any particular one was wrong?" He said, "Well, you said that we don't have, you wrote an article about how people in Liverpool go to Wales and assume everyone is speaking English until they go in, and then they all start speaking Welsh."
Oh, yeah.
I said, "Yes." I said, "It's a bit like the fridge door. Is the light on or off? How the hell can you tell?"
True. Yeah. True.
And he said, "Well, well, you were wrong." I said, "Well, you can't tell." He said, No. You said, even though I have no known Welsh antecedents. Your grandfather, Henry Williams, who was a Welsh speaker, he'd have been very upset by that. So my brother Teddy swiveled around. I said, but you always said we weren't Welsh." He said, "No, I didn't. I said Williams wasn't a Welsh name. It isn't. It's Norman French."
Oh.
Of course we're Welsh, and I still hate the bastards. My father was far-ranging bigotry, goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So on the strength of this, my nephew and his children decamped to Wales. And he brought his children up deep in mid-Wales in a Welsh-speaking village where they went to Welsh-speaking schools. And my great-nephew Gareth actually went to Oxford, but he speaks Welsh. He's working in the Welsh Parliament now.
Oh.
But they weren't Welsh at all. it was Irish because of this O'Gallagher guy dipping his whip in the wrong place. A couple of them, but no, the trees. I've just let it roll. I put the stuff in there, and every now and again I look and does this look like a relative? You say click, and it's actually. I mean, it's fascinating historically. I've got latest got back was yesterday, 1450 in Schleswig-Holstein.
That's a hell of a way back.
And that was somebody who was probably recruited for the Swedish army.
Yeah.
Because those ancestors on the Swedish border with Russia, they got land in return for military service. But their children had to go into the Swedish army, even though the regiment that they went into. It was like military serfdom. And their wives had to marry within the regiment. It was all, very regulated. And, so I use them as a pen name sometimes. Anton Wahlberg, my Swedish great-grandfather. It sounds like a good science fiction writer.
It does actually, yeah. Have you done that yourself, Steve? Have you looked at your background, your heritage?
No, I haven't. Never have, no. Just one of those things.
Okay.
Not got round to it.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather which on family law, and I checked it out, it works out in the documents, was one of the first cops in Liverpool.
Oh, yeah. A peeler. Were they called peelers? Or another name for them from Liverpool?
Then, but he lived in Lodge Lane. The house is still there.
Yeah.
It goes way back.
Yeah,
You've got a picture of it.
Yeah. I tell a lie, actually, Terry. My auntie looked into my background, and I've got a Welsh name, Evans. So I've got a lot of Welsh descendants, and a lot of my family on my dad's side, they were all fishermen on the coast of Rhyl and Prestatyn down that way. So it goes back that far, but that was only relatively new, I suppose. It's only in the early 1900s, and 18th century or 19th century. So. But I haven't gone beyond
how far back it goes, because you know who one of the biggest database manufacturers is the Mormons.
Oh,
the Mormons have a really weird tradition. If you join the Mormon church, they retrospectively baptize all your ancestors as well.
What?
They actually have a ceremony, and it's funny. I got into a debate on the radio once with somebody who said this was anti-Semitic because they were baptizing Jews without their consent.
That was anti-Semitic.
Anything's anti, this.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, label apply to anything. Yeah.
Don't go into it.
So anyway,
you can't have it both ways. Either you don't believe in it, in which case it has no effect at all.
Yeah, true.
Or you do believe, and I've always worked on the principle, it's best be fail-safe. When I was in hospital dying, Linda, my fiance as it was, that was there every night, and I didn't realize she was going off to a Filipino church and having them all praying for me every night.
Yeah.
And I said, I wish you wouldn't do that. And she said, why? I said, well, look, I'm not 100%. I'm fairly, to an infinitesimal degree, I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
But in case I'm wrong, I'd rather you didn't call its attention.
In case he's looking, yeah.
Yeah. Just in case I'm wrong. So there's no harm.
Yeah.
It's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It looks like time's caught up with us. This has just absolutely disappeared the last half an hour.
God, it has, yes.
Can we have another chat maybe in a couple of weeks' time so it becomes regular?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about Gaza, some of the work I'm doing. And
yeah, we never even got to that, did we? It's been really interesting.
No. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, death. No. We'll get with taxes next. Time to file taxes.
The only things you can't avoid.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. But listen, it's been fascinating as ever. But for now, Ian, cheers. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good to talk to you. Bye.
And you, yeah. Thank you for an interesting time.